Ooh, the podcast lost at home. Jeremiah here. Welcome to the podcast lost at home. Sorry, Scott usually does the intro, and I just botched that one pretty good, and I see now why Scott is so important to the show. Don't worry, Scott is going to be joining us for the interview that we have with Mr. Michael Myers, the Shape. James Jude Courtney from the new Halloween film is coming up. Scott will be here as well, but Scott is not able to make it for this little intro and outro, which is fine, because we actually have a little bit of a longer episode, because we were able to talk to James Jude Courtney at length, and absolutely appreciated every second of time we had with him, so we did not want to shorten anything up whatsoever. So if there are any radio listeners out there on the various radio networks that we're on that are kind of limited to an hour, you should be able to hear pretty much everything Mr. Courtney has to say, but you might miss a couple of minutes of our little outro and whatnot. So yeah, if you do and you want to check us out, go to iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, anywhere that you can find podcasts for the most part, and check us out and subscribe. You can get the full episode there, and also if you go over to patreon.com/lostathome, you can also get the full uncut interview. For the most part, this one's actually coming up as uncut. James Jude Courtney was a dream of an interviewee, and he answered everything we needed out of him. So anyway, it is a very special episode, so I'm not going to leave you hanging on for too much longer, but just do be forewarned if you're listening and you hear things get cut off. That is by design, and yeah, go check out the whole thing. It's a pretty awesome interview. We had a great time talking to James. Also, before I go on too far, I know all my primies out there are like, hey, 237, man, that sounds pretty prime, right? No, you're dumb. All right, dumb? 237 is not prime. It's 3 times 79. All right, go back to school. Go the fuck back to school. I don't even want to see you until you know your prime numbers. 1, 3, 5, 2 is in there too, actually. I already failed. Never mind. I know I don't actually have any primies. Scott is telling me all the time that I don't actually have any of these fictional prime number fan group followers that give a shit about prime numbers, and that's okay, because in my head you all exist out there. So I'm still going to shout out to all my primies out there, because I just want to feel something, and I want to feel like a company of another person, because I'm so lonely, and it's even my good friend Scott couldn't be here to help me do the intro or anything, because he didn't want to see my face. He told me I was ugly, and an idea Halloween scary enough as it is. He said, I don't want to see your face. He says, I think it's going to scare me even more than Halloween. I'd rather go home and stick my head inside of a pumpkin. He says, hey, anyway, I'm sorry. I shouldn't get emotional before an interview, but I just did. This is why Scott is crucial to the podcast. I would that's the end of what I have to say, which is good, because this week I don't have to say much of anything, because we let James Jude Courtney do the talking and tell us all about his role in the new Halloween picture, which is, of course, do a picture. Who the fuck am I? Like, nah, girl, go see your Halloween picture, see? And he does a great job in that. That is a runaway blockbuster at as of this taping. Oh yeah, we're gonna take some tape. See, as of this digital recording, it's taken in about $126 million in its 10-day against about a $10 million budget. So Blumhouse, you've done it again. Gosh darn it, but not without the help of James Jude Courtney, our lovely guest, who's about to tell you everything there is to know about the new Halloween movie, except for any spoilers or anything specific to the Halloween movie, but anything about going into making it and what it's like to be the iconic Michael Myers, stepping into some pretty big shoes, figuratively and literally speaking. And going to be great to hear him chat about what he has to talk about. So I'm not going to hold you off any longer, and I'm going to let Scott take this one away. Scott?
Welcome to the show, James Jude Courtney.
Glad to be here.
Now, we are huge horror fans. Any listener of the show obviously knows that, since we've been doing Halloween month. My God, we actually started technically in July with horror in July or Halloween in July, and then we kind of rolled it through. We're doing an interview series right now, and we're very happy to have you on the show. Obviously, listeners of the show have been keyed in that you'd be coming on this week, and that we'd be talking a little bit about the new Halloween franchise and the soft reboot sequel that you starred in.
Nice.
Now, I guess before we get into any of that, and definitely we're going to delve into it a bit, I'd like to ask you, basically, very simply off the top, what brought you into acting? What got you into this career path that led you to this monumental film?
I knew in fourth grade I was making movies for a living. It was an epiphany. I had several epiphanies in fourth grade, and that was one of them. And so by fifth grade, my father had an old-fashioned 3-lens 8mm camera and a little moviola. He'd been making family movies and eventually shot every football game and basketball game and boxing match that myself and my 6 brothers ever engaged in. So, by fifth grade, I was making my own movies. My mom was my first cameraman. So it wasn't like I put a poster up in my room or had dreams, or it was an accepted, my mom and dad loved me. I'm going to college and I'm going to make movies. It was just like an accepted fact in my life.
Now, with that accepted fact in your life, you did take a turn in your college days and you went for, I believe, journalism?
Yeah, but that was strategic because I didn't have the resources to attend NYU or UCLA or Southern Cal, the iconic film schools. And I've always had a fascination with journalism. I've always deeply appreciated journalism. And the University of South Carolina had the 6th ranked journalism school in the nation. So, and there's very specific things I really enjoy about journalism. One is the research aspect. I mean, how to get in on the truth, how to find the truth, how to uncover the truth. And the second is how to manipulate minds. And those are both very important things for an actor or a filmmaker.
And actually going into the Michael Myers universe, and of course, manipulating minds. In this case, you have to learn how to actually create fear and instill fear in people. I'm curious how the opportunity to actually play the iconic Michael Myers, or in this case, I guess more accurately, the Shape specifically, come about.
Well, Ron Hutchinson, the venerable old stunt coordinator, who did the 2 Rob Zombie Halloweens. Where he's, was set up to stunt coordinate this, and when he read the script, he said, he called Malik and he called David Green and said, "Look, guys, this is the way the script is written. We need somebody who has really deep acting chops and really, is a really good stuntman, and there's just not a whole lot of those guys around." And add to that David was very specific about the size and the height and weight of the actor, and he needed to be he couldn't be a 30-year-old guy. He needed to be an older guy. So all these things put together, really, after they looked at, I think they looked at one of the earlier Michael Myers, but he was nowhere near the physical condition to be able to do the demanding work that was going to be done on this script. So, as I understand it, when I got when Ron told me that I had moved back to Columbia, South Carolina, where I'm from, because I'm making my own films now, so I can live anywhere, and so oddly enough, they were shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. I went down to do the interview and put me on tape, and it was a long interview, a lot of movement, a lot of discussion about stunts and acting and, my training and then, but it was a lot of movement. And yeah, dude, I wasn't out of the parking lot and I got a call from Blumhouse asking my availability to shoot the film. And I hadn't even made it to the interstate to get back to my house. And they called me again and said, "Hey, David Green wants to meet you." And as I understand it, now I could be wrong, but as I understand it, I was the only, after they saw me, they didn't look at anybody else. They knew they had one. So it was kind of meant to be.
Well, that's an awesome story to hear that you kind of just, that they saw what they liked right off the bat. And actually that kind of leads me to a question I had a little later on, which was, curious what kind of, because you mentioned going to the auditioning process and what you had to go through when you were actually there, but I'm curious what kind of preparation you did ahead of time that what kind of preparation that goes into playing a monster like the Shape.
Well, this is a very unusual preparation for me because I studied with Stella Adler, who was Marlon Brando's acting coach, one of the greatest acting coaches of all time, and then I've had other very, very talented coaches, including from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So, normally I would prepare, from a method point of view, every word has meaning, every movement has meaning, every relationship has meaning. It's, there's a whole continuum of, there's a protocol you follow almost to create to create the character and to create meaning. For this one, it was purely energetic. So what I did was I watched the original one time before the audition, and what I was doing is reaching into what Nick Castle had created energetically. I wanted to embrace the energy of what he created. And Nick will tell you, John just told me to walk and I walked. Well, easy for him to say, because Nick Castle, if you look at his filmography and more, if you get to know him as a person, and I know him really well now, this is a deeply intuitive, highly creative individual. So what he created was he took what John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote and just ran with it in a highly creative way and created this iconic character. So what I did was reach into the energy of it. And there was a certain, when I was watching the film, I was actually at my brother's house. And it was the middle of the afternoon. I was watching the film, and there was a scene where Nick walks through the backyard, camera left, camera right. Really quick scene, couple seconds. And in my mind, I just went, I got it. And that was the energy I carried forth. I have not intellectualized this character. I do not intellectualize it. I never will intellectualize it. It really is a space. It's a place. It's beyond duality. It's beyond judgment. It's beyond, black and white, right and wrong, good and evil. It's beyond all that. It's a space that I when I played it, and then I would breathe out of it when we change setups or whatever when I was not working.
Now, I'm curious, did you feel nervous at all going into the role, knowing that this would be, outside of the Rob Zombie movies, of course, the first time that Michael Myers would be shown on screen without his mask for, more scenes than I think has ever been captured on film? Like, you actually carry the character without putting on the mask throughout, I would say, the first third of the film easily?
Well, I mean, honestly, again, I didn't intellectualize anything, and secondly, man, this is what I do. This is what I do, and so, from the moment of being cast and preparing, getting to that spiritual, energetic place where I was, prepared to go down and do the work on camera for the audition. At that point in the game, I once I locked into the energy, it's kind of like, when you're on a mission, like, it's a mission. And once you commit to the mission, everything else is superfluous. You just, you step in. And this is, I equate this to Special Forces guys, because I read a study recently that talks about how, like normal, regular Army guys, Marines, whatever, when they're at rest, they're not on a mission, their cortisol levels are low, their brain activity is average, their heart rates are average. But as soon as they go on a mission, they get pumped up. Cortisol levels go up, their brain activity increases. Well, Special Forces guys are the opposite. When the Special Forces guy gets, and when they're waiting, that's when their cortisol levels are high. That's when their brain chemistry and pulse rate is high. But as soon as they get a mission, everything drops down. And that's the way that's the way my body operates. Like, if I'm going to do a high fall, I get calm before a high fall. If I'm going to fight, I get calm before a fight. And so this was just an extended period of calm for me. So from the moment I went down for the audition, I was in that zone. And so when I got brought down to do the work, when we were rehearsing and then shooting, it was just being in that space. And it had already been created. So all I needed to do was drop down. And again, I've been doing this a long time. So to think about, ask any, athlete or, an attorney before he argues a case. The dude who's worried about whether he's going to do it or not is not going to give his best performance. The guy who's dialed in, or the guy or girl who's dialed in, and believes that, this was meant for them. And this is, it's game day, man.
Yeah, totally.
It's game day. You show up.
Now, this is going to harken back to a few minutes ago when you said that you watched Halloween with your brother. I'm just kind of curious from the standpoint of someone who's, doing these films. How did your, say, friends and family circle react to this new move, this new film? It's weird, man. This is the first time actually that anyone in my family has ever seen me work, like gone on set. It was a closed set, but after everything was kind of settled down, each of my brothers, I have 6 brothers, and 4 of them still living. So
So my brothers came down, some nieces and nephews, my mom. My mom has never seen me work. I mean, if you add up all the individual TV episodes and the movies that I've done well over 100. I mean, well over 100. And no one has ever seen me work except for my Uncle Jerry. Once saw me do a high fall in the hit list. But, you know, my family is like really supportive, but we're a big family, and my brothers are very accomplished at what they do. And my family's also very low key. So we're just really supportive of each other. We're always really happy when something happens. But it's really hard to say. It's a quiet sort of joy and support from them. But there was no fist pumping or, you know, I mean, nothing like that.
Well, it was it's interesting to, you know, go back to what you were talking about with the you know, your cortisol levels and things like that, because that sounds exactly kind of where, I mean, what I would imagine Michael Myers is kind of at, where when he's, you know, doing his thing. And of course it seems like his natural cadence would be kind of in that calm level when he's actually, in his case, his thing, quote unquote, I guess, would be, you know, heartlessly murdering people. And but there's still some life and personality behind him, even though he's kind of a faceless monster. And even though you know, were outside of the mask for a chunk of the movie, there's still a period of it, quite a bit of it, where you are kind of robbed of the voice and facial expressions that most actors, you know, rely on. I think it was Kane Hodder I recently heard saying, in his case, primarily Jason Voorhees, how much more difficult it is to bring a masked and mute character to life versus, you know, how people think it is, like, oh, you just have to walk around and slash a knife and things like that. How did you manage to overcome the absence of those two key elements through most of the film to bring life and personality without also accidentally humanizing a monster too much? How do you bring that to the Halloween movie this time?
Well, I think it goes back to you know, being in the internal space. Jimmy Cagney said, you know, acting is all about standing on 2 feet and telling the truth. So, you know, the audience understands if you're lying. I mean, because acting is about living in truth. You have to believe what you're doing. You have to be in that space. And you don't stand there and go, dude, I believe what I'm doing. You know, like, you have to really be in it. You have to really exist in that space. And that's what performance is all about. I mean, and so I think, you know, you notice, like, when I'm in the courtyard, and I give a slight, you know, or you know, as Michael Myers, give a slight reaction. There's a chord that's touched in there, which shows there is humanity. Again, I'm not going to intellectualize too much because I didn't go to that place. It's all vibrational for me. It's all in a very deep internal space, which I would breathe into, you know, own for a time and then breathe out. And it was not me. It's almost shamanic. It's almost, you know, like the ancient Greek performers and the shaman and indigenous societies around the world. They embrace spirits. They embrace energy that is not them, and they allow that to take over their being. And that's kind of what my experience was with now David talked about how he knew an actor who had gone to a deep place and had a psychotic break because he couldn't get out of it. So for me, the process was embodying that energy, embodying the energy of this. And think about this, man. A lot of guys have played this role, and so when you tap into what we, you know, call the morphogenetic field, this field of the universe is like this one big information pool. And so if you tap into that information pool, you know, you look at what Nick Castle created, but all these other guys who added their little nuances and their aspects, you know, Tyler, and the viciousness and you know, Dick Warlock, and, you know, all these great performances these guys did and what they poured into it, that's all part of the information that is Michael Myers. Even though we didn't count that, you know, we looked at the film as the sequel. All the other films were just urban myths. But, you know, on an energetic and informational level, all these guys had contributed something. And so all I did was tap into that energy, the energy of that, primarily Nick Castle, and then allow that to take over my body. And then, of course, the performance became mine because it had to come through my body.
Well, then actually you touched on something that I was curious about, and you sort of answered it there, but, you know, in this one being a direct sequel, in kind of just ignoring kind of what came after it in the canon, but with there being so many other you know, great portrayals of Michael Myers as in The Shape, were you at all tempted to kind of reach into that bag, or did you really like target yourself, say, no, I'm not even going to look into anything that anybody since Nick Castle has done. I'm really going to purely study Nick Castle's Michael Myers The Shape in this one, and kind of ignore anything that came after and make sure there's no temptation to take any of those nuances from the further films?
Well, I watched the first one, like I said, and then I watched the second one only because I know Rick Rosenthal and Nancy Stevens. I used to play tennis at their house, so I just wanted to see what he did again. And he's a wonderful director, and Nancy's an awesome woman, and so I just wanted to see out of curiosity what he did. And it so happened, for my money, Dick Warlock did very much the same thing that I did. He picked up on Nick's energy, and he kind of ran with it. So it's not imitation. It's an emulation. It's an embracing of an energy and allowing that. But I didn't watch any of the other ones. I didn't. I saw them all when they came out. I've seen every single one. I admire the work of every guy that put on the mask. But at the end of the day, it was really about embracing what was originally created and allowing that to morph into whatever it was that was going to come out of my body. And that's really, when you're telling the truth, I mean, it's your whole body response. And so even though my entire face wasn't shown and I didn't get to articulate my facial muscles and show emotion or non-emotion, if you look at the various shots of my face from various angles, it pretty much shows my whole face. If you were to compile them, if you were to do a montage of all those shots. So there's truth there, at least as far as I'm concerned, because I was living it.
Now, the movie's been out for, let's say, about 2 weeks now. And, I mean, saying it's a hit is an understatement.
Yeah,
it's been ruling the box office.
I think the last I read was 126 mil over the 10 days.
Yeah, that's
period.
really good. And I'm just curious, with all of this, how has your life been post-filming?
Lots of interviews, man. and the appearances, which are really special because I get to meet the fans, and the fans are stoked, and so I get these moments of hundreds and hundreds of moments. I mean, thousands really of moments where I get to meet the fans, or who are just really stoked and they're really happy with the film, and so I get to share in that joy with each one of these people just for a moment, for a minute or two or three, have a brief conversation, sign an autograph, take a picture, whatever, sit on a panel, do an interview with you guys, and I get to live the joy of being a part of something that has brought joy and happiness to a lot of people. And man, I've gotten some responses on social media. One was really touching, like the dude's mom just died, and he was wondering, like, should I go? And it took him out of his pain for a moment. And how good does that get, man? That I got to be a part of it,
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. That escapism that you can give people. And actually, we've talked to some other folks who have had the luxury / frightening experience of jumping into such an iconic franchise before. And I know, is there kind of a sigh of relief you're breathing now that you've been? Everybody I've talked to that has seen it. Scott and I, have fully embraced this. This piece of the Halloween canon, are extremely happy with it. Is there a sigh of relief, or were you kind of were you sure that you would just get embraced like this, or is there a little bit of a sigh of relief now that it's over and people? I'm sure not 100% of people are happy with anything, of course, but as horror fans, they can be, the genre fans can be very, very particular, and for them to kind of embrace you fully, do you feel a little bit redeemed and a little sense of relief now that it's over, even though your life is a whirlwind right now?
No, I don't. I mean, I did what I did, and it's like, yeah, you leave it on the field. You know what I mean? You leave it in the ring.
Good call,
and that's done. And there's nothing I can do about that. So it's not. If I were 25 years old, it would be a different story. As a younger man, I was really, like any younger man, I'm still finding my way. I'm still insecure in certain aspects. But at this point in the game, I've done this enough, and I know the place that I went to, and it was honest for me. And if all I can do is be honest, in any situation, in relationships and in my work, if I have integrity there, then I can walk away knowing that I did my best, and then it's up to the fans. And the fans, man, they have the right to voice their opinions.
Of course.
They're invested, And by the way, man, that's part of the energy that I think I embraced in retrospect. Not only the energy of the guys who played Michael Myers, but the energy that all the fans have been imbuing this film with, or this canon for 40 freaking years, dude. It's a lot of people and a lot of love and a lot of thought, and it's a lot of energy and information. And I think it's great that there's a debate whether, categorize myself, and I don't compare myself to other people. I'm just at that place in my life where it is what it is, man. I was blessed to be able to do it. I feel internally grateful for the opportunity, and I'm really, I love the response I've gotten from the fans. It's been beautiful, and I personally haven't gotten any negativity. So I feel a sense of gratitude through all this, and that's it.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. Yeah,
it's the best case scenario, honestly. Now, I was listening to an interview with Danny McBride recently where he said that initially they were thinking about doing 2 Halloween movies back to back and releasing them back to back, but they decided not to bite off more than they could chew. They wanted to see how people responded to the new sequel, and basically, how do you feel as things are running forward? Like, has there been any talk about actually going forward with a new part 3, and if so, has anyone approached you about reprising your role?
I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Hey, it was good. It was worth a shot.
Yeah, I signed an NDA about as thick as my waist. I haven't got a big waist, but it's still thick.
Yeah, it probably costs more than the entire take of the Halloween franchise to get out of one of those things. Yeah. So
here, actually, as a side question, I guess, I'm a Danny McBride fan. I've always loved Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, all of his previous works, and I was shocked to hear, when they initially announced that he was going to be writing, and it ended up being co-writing the new Halloween movie. Was he an influence on set at all? Did he actually appear, give notes, or was he more of I handed in my script and you guys just do this?
He was there just enjoying the process. Mm-hmm. He's a really cool guy. He's not only a very funny guy, he's a great audience. I mean, he listens. And I think what many people don't understand is, his level of the understanding of comedy. I think if you look at comedians, the great comedians, over the years, they have insane insight into the human reality. Like, they have insane insight into relationships and pathos. And, so Danny McBride, for sure, Jeff Radley, David, I mean, when they wrote this script, they did so with a deep knowledge of what the human condition is really about. And so I think the things that they brought, and, specifically if you look at Danny's work, his understanding, and he's such a great guy. He's just such a freaking great guy. So he has this very clear vision of what it means to be a human being. And I think that came across because there's humor in everything. I mean, 2 of my brothers have passed away. My father's passed away. We laughed our asses off at the funerals, and some people couldn't handle it. In fact, my mom and my brother, Tim, and myself were with my dad when he was passing away, and some of the nurses thought we were crazy, I think, because we were laughing. But my dad had us laughing when he was passing away. There's humor in tragedy. And so I think Danny specifically, but definitely Jeff and David, knew how to embrace that and make it a very human script and a very contemporary script with the issues that are going on, including the hashtag Me Too. I mean, and of course Jamie being certainly one of the most empowered females on the freaking planet. She's just beyond an icon. She's a remarkable human being, and so you take that and put it all together with the script. And when I read the script, that's the first thing I said to Danny when I met him was like, dude, the subtlety of the humor and the timing that you placed in this was just, I mean, it's just superlative.
Well, and people talk about that, comparison too, where people are sometimes surprised when comedians make it over into the horror genre. And of course, I think Jordan Peele kind of shut people up with Get Out, thinking that might be kind of an issue. But there are some similarities, so many similarities of what it takes as far as timing goes. Yeah, they might be trying to evoke a different visceral reaction, but as far as what you have to do to get that and evoke that and actually understand a human being and what it means to be a human being, I think are relatively similar. So I've never been that worried at all when I hear of somebody moving from the comedy realm, which I also love, to the horror realm, which is my absolute favorite and something I grew up loving. So it makes a lot of sense.
It's a perfect balance. And I think if you look at the career, like Robin Williams, I mean, look at the drama he's done, Good Will Hunting, Patch Adams, and, but how incredibly human that man was. Uh-huh. And, and how incredibly funny he was. I mean, because life really is pretty freaking funny when you get down to it.
Is, yeah.
But it's also really, really tragic, and it's really violent. And the planet Earth is not an easy place to be.
Yeah, and I mean, I absolutely agree. It's one of those things where, I mean, I think without finding some humor in everything, to certain degrees anyway, I mean, how less bearable the life would actually be, and how much more horrific it would be. So being able to find that is really important, and having those outlets, these little sandboxes of horror, tinged with some comedic elements without making them overtly horror comedy, is extremely important as well, to show that even in the world of Michael Myers and some of these other monsters, you can have a little bit of levity because the world still goes on around you, and that's how people actually react in the real world. So
yeah, and I think those guys really captured it in the script. And by the way, man, after I read the, because when you're making a film, I mean, you're there's revisions constantly as you're dealing with scheduling and all these different kinds of things. And after I think the second or third revision, I can't remember exactly what it was, I stopped reading the scripts, and I stopped even looking at the call sheets in the morning. I didn't even want to know what it was I was doing. My job was to just be in the space of the Shape when I showed up on the set, and I trusted that David and Ron, the sound coordinator, were going to tell me exactly what I needed to do. And so with the energies inside of me, I just, they established the parameters of that sandbox, and I got to play in the sandbox. I just had to know the limits. I just had to know basically what I was going to do. And then intuitively, I would just allow what internal, energies were there to dictate my movements and the way I played a scene.
Well, that's very, very lucky that you got writers that you could trust that with. I can imagine in some Hollywood outfits, you showing up after not reading 10, 15 revisions, and all of a sudden Michael Myers is a talking dog running for president or something like that, and being extremely surprised. Like, okay, here it is. Michael Myers is a talking dog now. We're like, oh, I should have probably read those, but it's nice when you have that trust. Before we move into 10 questions, I was curious if there's anything we didn't touch on that you want to chat about, or if there are any upcoming projects that you're allowed to talk about that you maybe want to discuss before we move on to those.
Yeah, I'm very close to producing my first film, which is a script I wrote. It's a coming-of-age story of a high school soccer player, and the mom dies of an opioid overdose, the brother's selling meth. I mean, it's dealing with a lot of issues that families and people are dealing with contemporarily, so really it's about uplifting and inspiring and giving ourselves permission to be who we are, because I've lived that in my life. I mean, life is not easy always. Sometimes it's incredibly tragic and painful. And, we have to find a way to explore our gifts and to take the risk of being who we are and doing what we do. And so I'm really excited to be a part of that. And, I mean, this is kind of an interesting platform because being that there is such a built-in fan base, and it puts me in a position to, really get out and meet a lot of fans and to have these, beautiful experiences like I'm having with you guys. I'm feeling grateful for the fact that I'm in this place at this time in my life as opposed to 30 years ago when, things were different. And I didn't have as great a sense of humanity and spirituality. The things that really drive me now as a human being are different. And so, gratitude, man. Gratitude is the pervasive attitude and energy that I'm living in right now with this experience.
Well, that's great to hear, and I'm actually definitely curious to hear more about that project as it comes about. So, by all means, keep in touch as that moves along. I know things can take a while to actually, come to fruition.
Do you perchance have a working title?
We have a working title, but it's definitely just a working title. I had a much more. In fact, I'm not even going to say the working title because it doesn't even speak to it.
Okay.
And I will say this, that I worked with a script consultant who's ushered in Academy Award-winning and Academy-nominated films, who read my script and called me, and he actually worked with me for free. He just like, dude, you got something great here. I just want to help you. And he just showed me one meeting, but he showed me how to drop little pearls. This guy was the person, like he was Joseph Campbell's right-hand man for 10 years. So the guy understands mythology and he understands dramaturgy. And so the things he showed me were, I didn't rewrite the script. It was literally like a word here, a sentence there, but it added what he called verticality to the characters. And I discovered things through a constellation that I did with him about my characters that I didn't even know existed, but they made perfect sense. So again, that place that I went to in terms of how I was able to manifest Michael Myers, how I was able to live in the space of the Shape, is the same place that we've come from collectively to create this project that I'm working with right now. And again, that's all about integrity and truth, and and speaking to the human condition.
Beautiful, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that progresses for sure. As production gets moving along, we'll be in touch, because I'm very curious about that. It sounds like something very timely and pretty heavy hitting, but I'm curious to see what how that ends up turning out for sure. We're ready to move into 10 questions if you are.
Okay, man.
Right.
Let's see what it is.
So these are, usually we have them all over the place. We've got some that are kind of Halloween / movie and season themed this time around, because we're actually going to launch this episode on Halloween proper. We always start out with a little bit of a couple of softballs. And this was one we actually ask every one of our guests. And the first question is, who is your favorite Ghostbuster?
Oh, man. Dang. Ghostbuster.
Starting with a hard one.
Bill Murray.
Yeah,
right.
He's easily mine.
Bill Murray.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm an Egon Spengler, Harold Ramis guy myself, but it's tough.
You
Well,
can't-
I get that. I get that. And and honestly, his name just flashed in front of me, but I had to, I sat on it for like a nanosecond. It's Bill Murray.
It is a Sophie's
I just
choice.
like
yeah,
Bill
for
Murray's
sure.
swagger throughout that whole
Well,
movie.
yeah, back off, man. I'm a scientist is my favorite line, and probably uttered in any movie ever written ever. So,
All right, so
All right.
number 2, what was your favorite Halloween costume as a kid?
Pirate.
very cool.
Nice.
But I've always really identified with. I mean, I did the live version of Conan the Barbarian at Universal Studios. That was my my entree into stunts, actually. And
great.
so a sword in my hand is something that feels just super supernatural. And I probably was a swashbuckler in a past life.
Oh, very cool, man. That's a great story about as Conan, man.
May I ask real quick?
Conan.
Pirate costume, homemade or store-bought?
Well, my mom made a lot of stuff. I mean, mom was she was very creative, and and made a lot of her own clothes and made things. So no, she made a lot of our costumes.
That's awesome.
So
I always love hearing that.
And I kind of went for more I mean, there's the authentic with the short. I mean, a real pirate was wearing like short, like knee-length shorts and sandals, and they didn't wear boots. And I mean,
Right.
But I went more for the Captain Morgan kind of guy.
Yeah. Just copy it off the Captain Morgan bottle. Yeah, it's well. You came from a large family. I came from a family of 6 myself, and having getting parents to go out and spend $40-$50 on a costume per kid is a little tough. And once you do it for one, you got to do it for all. So a lot of mine were
never
home.
gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the easy way to say it. I was in the same boat where, I mean, which was great because I got some very unique costumes out of it, and sometimes I had to whip some together myself.
Ghost, slightly older ghost,
Yeah.
slightly
Taller
older ghost.
That's pretty much it. It's just like sheets, but they don't get eye holes because I don't want you cutting my damn sheets open.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
Blind ghost.
I was a blind ghost. 14 years in a row.
I know, those are my wedding sheets. How dare you?
So besides Michael Myers, who is your favorite iconic horror villain?
A spirit guide of mine is I have to like sort of expand this into the iconic bad guy is Basil Rathbone. Basil Rathbone, of course, played Sherlock Holmes back in the day.
Oh,
but
right,
he was
yeah.
the highest paid character actor in Hollywood for decades, and he played just iconic villains. And the funny thing was he was really close friends with why am I spacing on his name now? Captain Blood, Robin Hood, Errol Flynn.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
so it was always said of Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone that Basil Rathbone had the easiest job because he's a really good guy who played really just nasty villains. And Errol Flynn was a really nasty villain who had to try to play nice guys. And so for me, the Basil Rathbone, you look at his filmography, and I have seen probably every Basil Rathbone film. He embodied evil. He embodied with such grace and refinement. And so for me, I mean, going beyond just simple horror, or simply categorizing it as horror. I mean, to me, it's in the same vibration. It's the same place. So that's a Rothbone for me, hands down.
Excellent.
And I kind of feel like he was with me on this show. Like I kind of feel like he was with me, experiencing the joy of being in front of a camera and just playing a nasty motherfucker.
Excellent. Get to channel some of your heroes.
Now, number 4, and this is in a similar vein, but switching gears ever so slightly. If you never got the role in Halloween as the Shape, but you could choose another horror character in a famous movie to reprise for, the reboot, soft reboot, sequel, etc. If you had a choice, what would you choose?
Wow. You're about to stump me on that one, man. That's tough because it really, for me, even the idea of being an actor or creating, I kind of don't operate from that place of I wait for inspiration to hit me, and that's kind of the way it's always been. Or when a job, when a role drops in my lap, then I'm like, oh, okay, what's this about? And when I start to explore it, it expands for me. But I never really saw myself as going anywhere or doing anything. I just knew that I was doing what I was supposed to do. So I think I exist more in the place of just really admiring the things that that Robert Englund created, for instance. I mean, and I have to say it would be something like that, maybe because Robert Englund, he just embodied this energy and his moves. I mean, I'm a mover. I dance. I still take ballet. I'm a martial artist. So for me, movement is really, really important. And so when you get to a refined level of movement like Robert Englund sort of embodied, that would be the type. But I can't say that I would want to be anybody else other than Michael Myers, dude.
It's a very fair answer, and I actually really like the way you illustrated that because it makes a lot of sense. Like Robert Englund, the way he literally stands or even walks as Freddy Krueger is iconic.
It just hangs his glove hand down a little bit differently. Everything's beautiful in that. But
and I guarantee you, man, that was intuitive. I guarantee he didn't put a whole lot of mental thought into it. I guarantee you that was just something that came through him because that's who he is.
But it became Freddy, of course.
Of course. Yeah. And wow. Wow.
And if you actually were Michael Myers and you got caught, you're on death row, what would your last meal be?
I think a child's brain would do well.
If they got you, you got to bring it to me.
Here, we can do a part B for that, and we can get a little morbid. If you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
I think I would want to go out without a meal because I wouldn't want to shit my pants.
That's a good call, man. I'd fast for a few days ahead of time.
I always hear that people do that. Yeah, when they die.
You just go out with some damn dignity, man. Just don't go, pooping out a roast beef sandwich.
I know, man. Getting your brains out and peeing your pants. No, dude.
yeah. Come on, go out like a boss. All right.
All right. Number 6. If you were a ghost and could haunt anyone, who would you haunt?
Famous, somebody you know, anything.
And also, the haunting doesn't need to be malevolent. It could also be benevolent.
Just get to hang out. If your buddies, would
you could either hang out with someone or, ruin their lives.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to, without naming names, I would have to look at the person that I think has done the most damage on this planet. And that would probably be a world leader somewhere.
Fair enough, I think.
In the past.
Yep.
And I would probably haunt the fuck out of them, man. Yeah. You know, and I would be like the ghost of Christmas past, where I would just bring up all these things like, dude, see what you did? See what you did? See what you did? See what you did?
Yeah, you become like a moral teacher through fear.
Just be a Dickensian.
Fear is a powerful motivator, man.
Yeah. The Shapes mask is based on William Shatner. What's your favorite Star Trek series? It's okay if you don't know Star Trek. You can wing it.
I do know Star Trek.
Okay, good.
And only because, I watched it as a kid, and so the Shatner Star Treks are always going to be the and the original Spock, of course, to me. I kind of resonate with that cool intellectualism. So I think the original Star Trek for me, even though it was really kind of cheesy at times and really simple, I mean, I think the whole series has been brilliant. And, Gene Roddenberry created something that was eternal and really, really embraced issues that we need to deal with which I think great art does. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, though, I think the original is just like the original Halloween. I mean, I'm really proud of the work I did. I'm really proud of the work that everybody did. But on some levels, nothing will ever compare to what John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, Nick Castle, all those guys created in the original. It's, for me, for Star Trek, it's the exact same thing. I mean, production values increased, tremendously talented actors and directors and cinematographers all jumped in, and really beautiful screenplays and teleplays. But at the end of the day, I think the original for me will always be.
No, good answer. It's actually probably the same for me personally. Actually, it's kind of funny because
what it did, like, politically there too. But
yeah, totally. The Shape's mask, Mike Myers' mask, is William Shatner's face spray painted white. I believe that's it. That's all they really did to it originally. I can't believe someone at this point hasn't taken old Star Trek episodes and just
now with
digital, digital
with
deep fake technology, just washing his face
white, and then remove all of his lines, so it's literally just Michael Myers playing.
So every time you see William Shatner on the bridge, just Mike Myers sitting on the bridge.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Man, you guys are doing this, and some 12-year-old CGI freaking genius is going to do it. It's going to happen.
Yep, yeah, I know.
I honestly hope we inspired someone with this episode. That would be amazing to go home and watch.
If you've got that, I hope in the couple of weeks, if you're listening to this, put it up there. Maybe a little link back to our show.
And listen, you 12-year-old punk, if you monetize this, we said it here first. That's a copyright.
Yeah, that's right. We've got it. We have it. I don't know how you can copyright somebody messing with other copyrighted material and monetizing it, but we'll figure it out.
We'll fight that kid.
We'll tell him we've got lawyers. He doesn't know any better. All right.
My dad's a lawyer.
Okay, he does. Never mind. All right, number 8, Scott.
Number 8. You've likely scared countless people with your role in Halloween. But what is it that keeps James Jude Courtney up at night? What scares you?
I'm a really empathic and empathetic person. So there are people in my lives who are right now today experiencing deep trauma, and the calls that I'll take at 2 a.m. from someone who's really experiencing a really, really difficult time in life. And so my idea of what it means to be human is to take these dark paths and to make something positive out of them. And so there are times I definitely lose sleep over friends, people in my life who are experiencing darkness, and the real question is, can they make it out? I mean, I know that when you go through really, really dark, hard times, when we get out of them, we're deeper, richer human beings, but some people don't make it out, man. And there are people in my life who, right now, who I'm questioning, are they going to make it out? Are they going to live? Are they going to realize their potential? And as an empath, that's really, really difficult to deal with sometimes, because it's, intellectually it's easy to say, well, that's their life, let them go. But, when I'm invested, when I love somebody, I really want to see them, succeed and be happy. And so that's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night. I'm not worried about the future of this planet. I'm not worried about the future of society. I'm not worried about the future of politics, because I think we're on a trajectory right now where we're alive at one of the most amazing times in history. I think we're experiencing a renaissance that we don't even realize we're in, because with all these movements that are happening, with what you guys are doing, again, with social media, with people downloading podcasts who are feeding themselves with new information, we are alive right now where people have the choice to embrace themselves as for who they are and what they are, and to know that they have a place on this planet, in this life, at this time. And so it's more on a personal level that things keep me up at night.
That's a very very beautiful, thought-provoking, and positive answer. I would have gone with Samara from The Ring, but you could take the high road. That's cool. It's actually you're pretty much mirroring exactly everything I would say, actually, as far as what keeps me up at night as well. It's not as much selfish of I'm going to get haunted by, and I think that's probably that way with a lot of people. But if you were okay, we're going to move on to number 9 here and get you to. Well, actually, are you in California right now?
No, I'm in South Carolina. I moved back to where I'm from.
Oh, okay, beautiful. So you actually, because I was going to say this might actually be a little less of a pressing question for Californians who don't have seasons. But I was going to say, if you had to choose one season to go away forever, winter, spring, summer, fall, which would you have to choose?
Oh man, I couldn't do that.
I know, right?
Because every one of them is so. In fact, my last long-term relationship, my last girlfriend, I wanted to spend 5 seasons in Maine on the beach. You know, like summer, winter, or summer, fall, winter, spring, summer.
Yep.
And she's like, dude, I am not spending a winter on the beach in Maine. I'm not going to do it. Ain't going to happen. But I think every season has its own beauty and its own challenges, and so I love them all. I love extreme heat. You know, being from South Carolina,
yeah, you got the real heat
extreme
down there.
humidity, extreme heat. But you know, I love each one of them for their beauty, and I don't know, man. It's like in a relationship, would I really get rid of the quirks and the pathologies of the women I've been with? No, man, because that's made them who they are, and you know, we're so lucky to be on this planet at this time and to live through all this beauty. I couldn't do that, man. Yeah. I wouldn't want to live in winter 24/7, 365. I wouldn't want to live, frankly, even though I love the heat, I wouldn't want to live in summer.
Yeah.
365.
My answer's winter.
we're from Vermont too, so it's
our winter is 6 months of the year.
Yeah, and here's the thing is I actually wouldn't even choose an entire season, but man, if somebody told me that February just wasn't going to happen this year, I'd be totally fine.
Just
January,
just
February.
one February that didn't exist.
Yeah, just like you wake up and it's March, but you didn't somehow also lose your job because you just slept for a month.
Yeah, 30 days of -10 I could do without for 1 year.
We run into the negative, temps quite a bit around here, but it is such a short period. And also the other thing I feel about that is how much I respect and appreciate the spring and even the fall leading into it because of the winter. I wonder how much that would change if suddenly I didn't
That is
have
true.
those.
It does give you a level of respect for the other seasons because you definitely go through as many winters as we've gone through and how harsh they can be. It's always good to see the other side, and it makes you love spring so much more.
Yeah, absolutely, and it makes you when you're going out in 40-degree weather with t-shirts on because it just feels really hot suddenly.
Yeah, 40 does feel hot in the spring.
I know. It's
you guys do that.
we do.
Well,
it's crazy.
I was born in I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
I lived in Bedford, Ohio.
So you understand.
I moved down when I was a kid. So I'm the oldest of my brothers. So I delivered papers in sub-zero weather.
Oh, yeah.
You 4:30 in the morning.
You got it, which also makes you appreciate it.
But there was something so beautiful when the moon is out and the snow is blue and there's nobody but you out there.
That smell.
Yeah. Man, I was like like the Michelin Man, with 8 coats on and 2 bags strapped to my shoulders, and it was hard and it was cold and brutal, but. And there were days when, as a young guy, I started playing football in 4th grade. So, you said, oh, no, you can't go out and run, but I was not going to miss my run. And, my lungs would burn. And, but it was just a really, really beautiful experience because on those days when I'd be out running in freaking 10-degree weather, Cleveland's on Lake Erie. So the winds that came off the lake were freezing cold, dude. Yeah. And, and we moved down south. I actually missed the extreme, but I love extremes, man. If you see the end of the film, and for the people who haven't seen it, I'm not going to say what happens. But that was extreme, and so the feeling of that immediately in that last scene is painful, and then you are literally within seconds of a catastrophic event. And so for me, extremes is a really alive place to be, which is why I've done stunts. So to lose the extreme nature of a season, extreme heat, extreme cold, a lot of rain, or the sublime beauty of, the season change in fall when the leaves begin to turn. I mean, God, that's, it's incredible.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. It would be a tough one for me to choose as well.
Still winter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By tough, I mean I would choose winter. Yeah, definitely.
Now we're on to our last question, number 10.
Well,
this is the hardest question that
we throw a real curveball.
Ooh, this one's tough.
Yeah.
Is a hot dog a sandwich? And bonus points if you can include the phrase fake news.
Well, I consider I would say that a hot dog is an American delicacy, and that anybody who doesn't understand that is completely tied into fake news, because where else in the world could you go and watch a baseball game and get a freaking awesome dog with just the right mustard? You know what I mean? And I've had that experience in Major League Baseball stadiums, more than several actually. And even in that moment, the idea that a hot dog is not healthy for you is fake news for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more important than having a hot dog at a baseball game.
Yeah, I would say I remember my parents would say hot dog day keeps the doctor away, and then I got diabetes. But that was a beautiful answer and great for the extra points. I'm actually curious. Are you because you brought up baseball there? Are you a Cleveland fan because you grew up in that area? Or did you pick up teams from something else, or do you not even give a shit about baseball?
Well, I mean, as a young athlete. I started baseball late, so I was stuck in right field, and that was the most boring thing in the freaking world.
Oh yeah, that's where they. Yeah.
There in this, yep. I mean, and everybody else started a few years ahead of me. So I'm more action oriented. Like I love martial arts, I love football. I love engagement, I love contact. I super appreciate the athleticism of a baseball player. I mean, it's just, the refinement and the subtleties and the hard work that it takes to be a baseball player. For me, baseball, going to a baseball game, I'm down here in South Carolina. We've had universities had some, national championship teams, and I've been there. I'll show up and watch them, and I really appreciate the athleticism. But at the end of the day, it's more that I appreciate the athleticism and the intelligence. I'm really more a college football guy. Yep. I mean, at the end of the day. And so my South Carolina Gamecocks, are, I bleed dark and black, man. In fact, I talked to a guy who played, for Alabama, not too long ago. And he's like, he'd never, in all the stadiums he'd played in, he'd never played in a stadium like South Carolina. I mean, it's one of the most insane stadiums you'll ever see. The fan base is just rabid. I mean, at the LSU, Florida, Alabama, there are definitely schools around the nation that have really, excellent fan bases and excellent stadium experiences. But, I feel really fortunate to, and I've been up in the governor's box. My brother's a politician. We have multiple tailgate spots, and we have cockabooses down here, little cabooses where you go out and party your ass off. And at the end of the day, man, football's it.
Yep. Well, yeah, I can pretend I was asking because the World Series just passed, but really I was just curious, and that wasn't one of the 10 questions. That was the 11th question. So you've already passed our hard round of 10 questions, plus the bonus phrase fake news tossed in there, plus the bonus question, and a follow-up, man. You knocked it out of the park. That's another baseball thing I guess they do. I'm just making all those puns all over the place. Don't even mean to. Thanks for listening to our World Series themed podcast, but not really. And we do want to say thank you, James Jude Courtney, for sitting through the 10 questions and providing all the insight on the new Halloween movie. You've done a great job, filling the large shoes and the heavy shoes of Mr. Michael Myers, aka The Shape, for this role. And I hope to see a heck of a lot more of you in the future. And now that you're going into the production game with this film that's coming out as well, I'm gonna really curious to see where everything takes you from here.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm honored to be your guest, man. And you guys are awesome. And thank you for doing what you do, man, because I think what's happening is journalism is being taken to, I really, again, have a deep, deep affinity for journalism. And what you guys are doing is taking information to a new level. It's not being controlled by a corporation that needs to make $1 billion. It's not, being controlled by a network or being controlled by, I had a law and ethics professor in journalism school who he said, you got to ask yourself these two questions. One, when you're interviewing somebody, what is it they want you to know and why do they want you to know it? And secondly, who owns the newspaper or network that you're working for, and what do they want you to share, and why do they want you to share that? And so I think the freedom of doing what you guys are doing is you don't have these ulterior motives that are based on profit. Yeah, I mean, it's always a business. I mean, we deserve to make a living doing what we do. I make a living doing what I do. But at the end of the day, I think this whole podcast thing is taking it to a new level, because people can find journalists that they find honest, and they have integrity, that have shared likes and dislikes, and they're going to learn from them. And it's not going to be based, solely on the monetized paradigm. So, thank you for doing what you do, because it's freaking awesome.
Absolutely, and that's definitely the most credit anybody has ever given us for doing a podcast in our life. It's funny, I'd never actually thought about that, the difference between maybe going into an interview like this and one with a corporate owned, a corporate entity that owns it, of even having to think about what kind of different answers you might have to give because of the ulterior motives. We are just genuinely curious horror geeks, and we're really glad that you spent some of your whirlwind on sitting down with us and asking questions. So once again, James Jude Courtney, from the bottom of our hearts and from the listeners out there, thank you very much for doing what you're doing and for sitting down with us today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, it's been my deepest pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you again, James Jude Courtney. I know we said it a bunch in the interview, and I wanted to just say it once again. That was great for James to take an entire hour plus out of his whirlwind schedule that's been going crazy for him to sit down and chat with us and to chat with you all out there. I hope you all felt like you were part of the conversation. We were giddy going into it, and we're even more giddy now. I almost felt like I had a friend for a second. And then the loneliness came again, and the loneliness monster ate away at my soul like it's a butterscotch cookie, and the monster likes butterscotch cookies, so he's nibbling away going, "You don't need that soul, do you? You don't need no happiness in your life, do you?" I'm like, "No, you don't." "Oh, why don't you turn to your friend Scott and talk to him?" "Oh, he's not there because he don't like you anymore, because he thinks you're an ugly dum-dum, and he thinks your face looks like a shrunken cabbage, even though it's a big head. You got a big old head, you fat neck fuck." Anyway, want to go out on our continuing saga of Jason Jr. and Bruce. We're going to go ahead and hear back from them and see what they've been up to. Hopefully they're fine. Last week left you on a real old cliffhanger, and we're gonna hear what they have to say. And after that, we're going to go out on Sonic Jalopy. It's weird because that's me, but not me. It's my little, it's my pseudonym, my pen name for my music stuff. It's fitting because quite a few years ago, I wrote some songs about the human side of Michael Myers and how him being put. It's Halloween. It's horror emo is what I've called it. It's a tongue-in-cheek little bit. It's about. It's called "Don't Call Me Monster." Just call me Michael. And this is going to be the first of two. Those of you who've been listening for a while have already heard, I think, both of them just peppered in randomly. But anyway, I decided to kind of sit that back and say, hey, is Michael Myers really that much of a monster? I mean, he is now, but what made him that way? Maybe the parents were a little too harsh to be like, "Oh, you murdered. Now we got to throw you in a home and like not even visit you for 15 years, and we expect you to just be a fine kid." Yeah, guess what? I'd be a little fucked up too. Anyway, gonna humanize the beast of Michael Myers a little bit in the song after our little bit. But first, we are going to hear from Jason Jr. and Bruce. Hopefully you guys are doing okay, and in the meantime, don't worry, Scott will be back for the next time around. And happy Halloween month, everybody. We will be bleeding right into Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving Halloween month as well, because fuck it, we like it. And enjoy, get lost, goodbye. Well, I'm in a bit of a pickle here, folks. Jason Jr.'s singing put me right to sleep while we were surrounded by werewolves. Or maybe it was just me crashing hard off my coke binge, I don't know. Either way, I woke up and Jason Jr. was gone. I fear the worst because there's just a little bit of piss dribble, a little British piss dribble leading away from my storage container hideout. That don't look good. I think maybe he was dragged out of here, kidnapped by some kind of beast. Maybe he was just kidnapped by some piss-loving creep with a penchant for young boys. But either way, I wouldn't want to be Jason Jr. right now. I really want to help him, I really do, but my foot's asleep, so there's that. And then there's the fact that I don't have a weapon. So I'll find a weapon, slowly, don't want to rush these kind of things, and once I do that, I'll reassess the situation, and I'll see if it makes sense to risk my very burly, important, and invaluable life with the little British has-been. I'm very burly and very brave, so I imagine I'll save him, but also, what if I don't? What if I don't? What if this what the werewolves want me to do? Well, we don't even know their motives. I know, you're saying, Bruce, they're werewolves. Their motives are eating people. Man, go save them. Maybe making a couple of other werewolves along the way, but for the most part, they just eat people. You know their motives, man. You're just stalling for time then. Question, do werewolves fuck? I've seen like the howling and tons of bestiality, so I assume they fuck, but do they really have to? No, but they don't have to procreate now, do they? They just bite someone and now they've got a whole new werewolf, all potty trained and everything. Why waste all that energy birthing new wolves? All the pain and everything, little babies that all need your attention. You can't go out werewolfing all day. You gotta be like, I've gotta stay home with the baby. A little baby werewolf's gotta stay home with it. Gotta make sure the baby werewolf got its pampers changed, whatever that baby wolves do there. You know, like, oh no, it's gotta take its first step. No, you can have a brand new wolf right away. It pays its own bills, wipe its own ass. All you gotta do just bite somebody. That's the way to have a family. We should look into that as humans. Imagine they just walk up to somebody. You walk up to a cat. What if you walked up to a wolf and bit a wolf and all of a sudden you got a brand new human? Well, that'd be terrifying, actually. Never mind that. Try another way. Although, if they do fuck, like, if you make a wolf, you know, like you bit somebody, they become a wolf, you're like, oh, they're hot. Can you fuck that wolf? Or is that like werewolf incest, you know? Like, is it okay to do that? Or is it maybe like step sibling kind of thing, like something you'd see on Werewolf Pornhub or something like that? You know, you see, it's answers to these questions that I must gather before I go out on a suicide mission to save some British wang. So I'm gonna ponder these for a bit, find a weapon slowly, maybe take a nap, and can't go werewolf hunting if I'm not well rested. Then I'll need something to eat, of course. Can't go werewolf hunting on an empty stomach. Yeah, that's the plan. I'll check in soon. Let you know if Jason Jr. turns up as a pile of bones somewhere or whatever. Over and out back. Do you get it? Over and out back. It's like a little Aussie pun for you there. A little Aussie pun for the listeners out there who wanna hashtag it. Go ahead. Pretty cool if you ask me. Over and out back. I thought it was nice.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong.
Halloween night, 1963. Got my clown suit on and I'm ready. What happened next? I blocked out the memory. Blood on my shoes and Judith dead at my feet. I scream, ran out the front door. Thought mom and dad, they would save me. They just threw me in a hole. Neglect the thought of my existence. Replaced the boy with the devil in their heads. Don't call me monster, please, just call me Michael. I got a chest full of breath and a heart that beats in it. I just want another chance to be the son that I know I can be. 15 years filled with darkness. 15 birthdays without a family. If there's a devil inside, it was fashioned by your hands. Time robbed my youth of a soul and my humanity. Don't call me monster, please, just call me Michael. I got a chest full of breath and a heart that beats in it. I just want another chance to be the son that I know I can be. Don't call me monster, please, just call me Michael. I got a chest full of breath and a heart that beats in it. I just want another chance to be the son that I know I can be.